So we're here today installing a Mr12volt kit on an 09 911S. This unit has the factory PCM 3.0, and we'll be going through the full install piece by piece, bit by bit, and showing you how simple it is to install one of these. Today we will be doing an install of a Mr12volt PCM 3.0 kit into a 2009 911, and we're going to go step by step and make it as clear as possible so you guys can do this yourselves. So to begin, most kits are purchased from acsbyroman.com with the optional install accessory kit. This install accessory kit has additional standoffs if you have satellite, zip ties to retain an internal harness, the Torx 8 driver to remove the screws, and harness tape to wrap your harness so it doesn't vibrate or chafe inside your dash. If still available, I also include a free solid metal high-speed car charger. So I like to start my kits by first wrapping the harness. This is going to be your basic harness. Make sure that this connector is assembled, otherwise you're not going to have power to your P2000 module. You can take all the zip ties off. And you're left with your main harness. Now what I tape together is the harness for the cameras. Since we're not installing a camera in this car today, we are just going to tighten this up so that none of these additional wires gets tugged while pulling the harness through the dash. It also keeps this little harness from unplugging when you're pulling things through the dash. Now this harness tape is the same harness tape as your harnesses are made of inside your dash. So they have a little bit of fuzz on them and will keep you from having additional vibrations from anything rubbing. Okay, now we have a solid harness and we are ready for the next step. So next we're going to look at our harness, get that ready to go. And depending on if we have if we have Bose or Burmester in the car or base radio, will determine what configuration this harness will go in. So at this point, I'm going to go and pull the PCM from the car. Now, before we go and pull the PCM out of the dash, I want to show you the tools that we're going to be using to do everything. We have a Torx driver with everything from a T20 to a T30. I don't know if we're going to use the T30 today. We have a 5mm Allen, and we have a small flathead screwdriver to help get the plugs off, and a towel so we can put down over the shifter so we don't scratch up the shifter. I'm going to show you how to check if your PCM 3.0 has satellite so you can get the correct standoffs for your installation. First, we're going to key on. Next, we're going to turn on the radio, and we're going to press source. If you see satellite listed as one of your inputs under source, make sure to order from acsbyroman.com so you can get the correct standoffs. At the beginning of our install, we'll be removing the side covers, this cover here and this cover here. To do so, we need to access the screws that are hidden in here. You see there's one right there, here, and on the other side of the vehicle. There's a cover. We'll be pulling off this cover here. There's access to one screw, and then this cover plate comes out, and I'll show you now how they come out. Just give it a tug, unplug this right here, and that's all for this side. This side hidden screw is a T30 Torx. We're just going to get in here and unscrew it. And this whole panel will come off with the screw. The screw's not going to come out. And that's it for this side. The panel for the other side will need a T25 Torx. Next step is to remove these side covers here, and they only have 2 screws on each side. There's one right here and there's one right here, as you can see. And they are easily removed with a T20 Torx. Now we're on the passenger side, removing this side panel right here. And like the driver's side, it just has 2 screws right here. And once it gets unscrewed, the panel will pull right out. Be careful not to lose the screws behind the carpet here. If they fall down here, they will be lost forever. And this is a T20 Torx that I'm using to remove this screw. Same T20 Torx as was to remove this screw from the cover. Okay, and once these are out, just grab it with your hand and give it a tug, and it'll come out in a little jiggle. And the panel will slide out. There you go. Now for a slightly more challenging part of the uninstallation of the PCM, we need to turn the retainers to the release position so this PCM will come out. Now there's 4 retainers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they need to be rotated in this manner. These go down, quarter turn, and these go up, a quarter turn. You will feel when they're turning. If you turn them in the wrong direction, you will break the retainers, and that will make removing the PCM very, very challenging. I'll show you on the sides here what they look like. If we can focus, there is the retainer right there. You just slide your Allen key in there and rotate it. And there's another one right there, and there's matching ones on the driver's side. I can feel it's like shift. That's great. This driver's side upper is usually the most challenging. There we go. Nope, it is out. Okay, so those have released. So we're just going to put our cover down over the shifter so we don't scratch it up. And we're going to get this tool out to help remove some of our retainers from the back of the PCM. I also like to slide the passenger seat forward in case I do want to put the PCM on the seat, and we can always use another seat cover, another towel on the seat to cover the seat if needed. Now be careful if this car was recently on. It is hot, hot, hot. So just be cautious that you don't burn yourself with the PCM. Now I'll show you the retainers on the sides that I was rotating. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and you see when you rotate them, it pushes this finger this finger down. So if you've broken your retainers, you can still get a screwdriver and press these fingers down, and that will allow the PCM to come out of the dash. Alright guys, next step is to unplug the PCM from the harness. So we have a couple different harnesses here. The first main plug that we have here is our quad lock. This is the big lock here. So we're going to pull down and out, and that will wiggle back. Then just flip the PCM over, and I like to put a little bit of pressure on these tabs, and they come right off. This one on the side is a little bit more particular. I like to get the flathead in there and just kind of wiggle it after pressing on the retainer, and it will come off as well. There we go. The PCM is out. We have the PCM here, and I'll show you the screws that we're going to be removing. So we're going to focus on these two right here, 1, 2. And we're going to remove this tape right here, which is going to keep the PCM from opening. So all we need to do is just kind of get the tape out of the seam. And take out our 2 screws. Now, this CD player portion of the PCM will lift up. As you see, there's a little hook right there, and there's one matching on the other side. What we need to do is lift up. These things do get stuck sometimes, so what I like to do is I like to use a flathead, just get it in there and wiggle it until it starts to move. You see it start to lift here, and we do the same on the other side. And I'm going right in that corner, just wedging it lightly, and it will start to move. And at this point, everything will lift up. And there we go, we are open. So we're just gently going to lift off the tabs and put the CD player on the side here. And we are into the PCM. So we're going to start this install by getting the insides ready. So I like to first lift the two ribbons that we're going to be working on from the PCM. So what we're going to do is we're going to go after this connector and the one underneath it, and we're just going to rock that connector side by side, side to side, with an upward motion, and it will rock up and back, and that will be the release position. And then you can grab this harness and it'll just pull right back up. And like you see, they come up really, really easily. I'll show it moving right here, if you can see it. That's open. And when we're going to lock the connector in, we're going to push it forward and down. So the next thing we want to do is we want to pull this harness out here from underneath the XM board and really kind of cinch it down here in the corner. That way we'll get a good clearance for the Mr12volt board. Next, we're going to remove 3 screws where we're going to put standoffs. 1, 2, 3. Now there's one more screw that we remove, and that's the retainer at the back of the PCM that holds this harness for the XM antenna. Alright, so now we have to put standoffs on. The tiny standoff that you get with your kit, that's going back here, where the screw was. And these standoffs are just hand tight. Now I'm using a little driver just for speed. You don't have to. Again, they're hand tight. And for the third one, I've included an additional standoff for this position. So we're just going to put the 2 standoffs together, and we're going to install it in that third spot. Okay, so now we take our board. Oh, before we do the board, we have to do our harnesses. I'm sorry. So the harnesses, keep an eye on the direction that the blue is facing. So when they're installed, the blue is facing towards the back, so we have to put our harnesses in the same way. So I'm going to start with a small harness, make sure the retainer is opened, and we're just going to drop it in and wiggle it a little bit side to side until you can feel it drop in. Sometimes you'll want to do this a couple times just to be sure, because this is the majority of the problems with people that have issues. It's these ribbons not being seated. So that's the first one. And that's the second one in. Okay. Third in, I'm giving a little bit of a tug. Feels good. And now we drop on our board. Now I'm just going to reuse the same screws that we took out to install the Mr12volt board. Okay, not super tight. Then we just install our harnesses. Again, flip these open. They should just be finger tight. Everything's very loose. Mind that these two rear harnesses are facing the other direction, so the front two will open to the back and these rear two will open to the front. So we're going to start off with the smallest one. Get it seated nicely, and we're just going to push forward on the retainer. It's hard to see, but you're going to push forward on the retainer and down, and then it's in nicely. And make sure it's open. We're going to put in our harness, wiggle a little bit, feel that it's dropped in, push forward. Where's a little bit? Push forward and down, and then we've locked this in. Looks good. And again, we're going to start from the small one. Wiggle a little bit side to side. Oh, we feel it dropped in. We push the retainer back and it drops in. Good. Open it up. There we go. I felt that one drop in. Push the retainer forward and close. Now I feel like that one is not really good, so we're going to open it up again lightly. Wiggle it side to side. And take it out. We're just going to reset it. Be sure that you're seated so you don't have to take your PCM out of your dash again. Not fun. Especially on a PCM 3.0. Okay. Now, I like to roll a little bit of this harness underneath. Just to get as much wire out of the way as possible. And the rest you can just kind of press down. Nothing's going to happen to it. And now that side of the board is ready to go. Now we're going to take our main harness, and we have a white connector here, right here, this guy. So this guy we feed up through the opening that we made by disconnecting the satellite antenna. I'm going to feed him up through here. And plug him in with the two white wires facing to the right. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to zip tie this in because a lot of times when you're pulling this harness, this comes out. I include these zip ties with my kit. Okay, and we're done for the inside of the PCM. So when we're putting this PCM back, there's two tabs we have to consider for the 3.0s right here. There's two matching holes on the back of the CD player. We want to line those up, and then it's in. Then we just bring it down, and we want to make sure that we push the face forward enough to slide in. There's one side, and there's the other side. And we just scrunch it down, and then we go. That's it. We know we're good when the top holes line up. We're going to put back our two screws. And now we're going to put the one retainer back where we had this harness come through in the back. Now we put that little standoff right there. Now some cars don't have satellite radio. They still have this cover where you still put this harness through. They just don't have this. So you're just going to remove the cover, throw it away, and you won't need this additional standoff. Be mindful of how you mount this, because when you plug in this blue connector, it wants to face down, so this harness will kind of get in the way a little bit. It's a little bit pain in the butt, but it's all doable. Okay. Alrighty, so we've got everything done. Since this is a PCM 3.0 with a amplifier, we have fiber here. So we're going to modify our fiber harness to be ready for install inside. So the fiber harness has 3 plugs on it. One long one here. This is we're not gonna touch that one, and 2 short ones, a male and a female. We're going to take the head off of the male one, and you can do that very easily by just depressing this little tab right there, and then we're going to pull out. There we go, it comes right off. And I'm going to show you how this installs when we get into the car. Back in the car here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate out these 3 harnesses that get plugged into the back of the PCM, so that you'll have an easier time sliding the PCM back. So just simple as that. Give yourself a little bit more slack. And then we're going to move to installing the fiber connection. So this plug goes into our adapter harness here. So we're going to take the fiber out of this one. Just like we did on the inside, we're just going to depress the tab right here, and the fiber connection comes out. Adjust this again. Then we're going to take our quad lock adapter harness, make sure we seat it really good in there, and as we lock it, it will pull itself tight. You want that plug to look closed like this. Now we have this open harness for the fiber. Now I've taken the one end off here what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that end that I removed and put it on this harness here. That end that I just connected goes onto the one female plug that's on this harness. Just connects. And this one bare connector will now go in the first position of our new quad lock that gets plugged into the back of the PCM. It's the one on the plug in the corner. It only goes in one direction, so you don't have to worry about being upside down. It snaps right in, and that's it for this. So next step will be to feed the harness through the car so that we can hide away our P2000 module. So I'm going to feed through the car the harness with the white plug, the USB harness, the fiber harness, and the LVDS tan plug. We're going to go through the back here and down out through here. We're going to come out here and we're going to hide the box back here in this area back here. Alright guys, before we push this PCM back into the dash, we're going to plug everything in and make sure that the system is live in the PCM. That way, if we do have any issues, we don't have to pull the PCM back out of the dash. So I'm going to connect our module, P2000 module, LVDS harness, and fiber. And we're going to connect the quad lock to the PCM. Make sure the plug is, the retainer is open enough or it won't slide in all the way. There we go, and when you push it down, it will pull itself into position. Now you don't have to plug in the rest of this stuff to test it. So we're just gonna power on the PCM. And we're just going to press source, and now we see TV as an option. And when we select TV, it brings up the Mr12volt screen. We see everything is in the right position, the screen is not off center, the colors are not off, and we know we did a good install inside. So now we're just going to unplug everything again and do our wire management. Now this is oftentimes the most challenging part of the install. Because now we have this big wad with two quad locks in the back of this area where the head unit sits, and that makes it really, really difficult to push the PCM back. We start by plugging in our quad lock. Okay. And then we try to organize how we're going to run our wires to try not to have too many crossed wires, which is going to cause us a tangle in the back. So I like to route everything to the side and have the quad lock be by itself, that gives me the best chance of not having a issue mounting this inside, but even I do at times have an issue mounting these. Just put these through. The harness comes right through. There's plenty of room to reach. And there's your USB. Okay. Now for the difficult part of trying to wrangle this whole beast back inside the dash, while at the same time plugging everything into your additional harnesses into the back of the PCM. Now I'm going to slide the seat forward to give me as much room up front as possible, or as little room up front as possible, because it is uncomfortable to do this. And I need to be as close as I can, so this one goes to the other side. Okay, once you're at this point, you're really not going to be able to put the PCM down anywhere, so continue to pull your harnesses through and make sure there's as little slack inside behind the PCM as possible for all your wires. It'll be easier for you to get everything else done that way. Now the first test fit, almost guaranteed not to fit. And I'm going to pull our stuff through. We are really, really close, but no cigar. So we're going to just go back and forth a little bit until we're well seated. I'll just change the position of this plug. And we're actually worse now than we started. And that's it. We're in. So the next thing we need to do is close our retainers. Remote tool. I'm going to lock them in the opposite way that we unlock them. Okay. Now we can test the system one more time, just to make sure we have not crushed anything in the back of the PCM. Press source. Comes up with Mr12volt right away. We're doing good. So next I'm going to show you where to put your P2000 module. Alright everyone, here you can see where we've done our routing from the PCM. Here's our fiber, here's our main harness. Everything is in here. I've routed it through a little niche right back here, and the box for us in this particular model is going to sit right there. it right there. We're just gonna tuck the stuff back here, and we're gonna leave the USB cable accessible. And we can just throw on some of our covers. On the reinstall here, we're putting the side covers back on. They go on really simply. Just make sure you have no wires sticking out. Just put them in. Oop, we got a wire sticking out. Lined up, and you just press with both your hands, and that's it. Then we just put our two T-Torques on the sides, T20s. One screw has escaped. Escaped screw has been found. And then we can put on back our T30 and put on this little side cover. There's these little tabs there. Just got to get them in the right place, and everything will set. It takes a little bit of jiggling to get it just right, but and that's it. That's it for this side. Here we're going to put on the cover, side cover for the other side, but you can kind of see where this module peeks through on the side here. It's not in the way of anything. So just like we did on the driver's side, we just got to get a position just right. And just press it, drops right in. And then I'm going to use a T20 Torx to attach those two screws on the sides. Don't lose your screws or you will never find them in this area here. And we just install our side cover, making sure to plug in our 12 volt. So all kind of just goes right back into place. That, and that's it. Alrighty, so we're doing a first boot with the PCM 3.0 Mr12volt installed. So if you could just turn on your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and when you scroll down in your Bluetooth at the very bottom, you're going to see a Bluetooth connection for Mr12volt.
Scan?
Yes, scan. There it is at the bottom. Pair. And the first load is always the longest. And there you go.
Look at that.
Everything's loaded up and ready to go. Now you have some options in here besides going to your, you can control things with your knob, or you can use the finger touch. If you want to go back into the options, you just hold the back button. Brings you into this menu, and you can scroll into mirroring with the M-Link software. And then you have your video if you choose to put video on your USB cable that's on the left there, or audio. You can also do music on a USB stick through that USB cable.
Which is?
The USB cable is by your feet there.
Okay.
And we go into settings, and we have some options here. Your general settings, car settings for camera stuff, display stuff, sound for your equalizer, and system settings here in factory mode. We'll give you echo cancellation if you do hear an echo on your phone, and some advanced settings if the manufacturer deems you need to adjust something. So to get back to your normal menu, press back. You scroll back to Android Auto for you?
Yeah.
And if you need to go to any PCM functions, you just press source, and they are all still there. If you want to go to FM, it comes right up. Or if you want to go to satellite, it's all still available. But if you leave it on Mr12volt, it will boot into Mr12volt when you first start your car. And that's it for the install of our PCM 3.0 Mr12volt kit.